Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Mark from Right Line Trading, and I'm going to wait another couple of minutes, and then we're going to begin. Hope everyone's having a great day. Had a successful morning trading, and we're going to start the presentation. It's really a unique presentation, and I think it's going to open your eyes to a whole new way of investing that is potentially extremely lucrative. We've been making really nice, doing extremely well with this technique. I want to open up for the questions. Hey, Ruben, how are you? How you doing? Hey, Joe, Michael, Alan, Victor, how are you? So before I even start, I'd like to ask you all, first of all, I'd like to make sure that you can hear me. If you can hear me, if you could just put a yes in the chat, I'd really appreciate it. Okay, great. Okay, terrific, terrific. Okay, thank you guys and ladies. Now I want to ask you, I'd like to ask you one question. When you trade either stocks or options, what is the most difficult aspect that you find of your trading? I mean, what do you find the most difficult problem that you encounter when you trade? You could just type that in really briefly. Maybe finding good trades, maybe trade management after you enter. It could be one of a number of things. But what do you find is the number one problem that you find when you are trying to trade and make money? Okay, Mark, what and how to trade, market direction. Obviously, that's Calvin, that is key. Knowing when to get in and when to get out, extremely important, George. Trade management, again, obviously extremely key. Retracements, volatility, Ruben, also extremely key. Those are all absolutely terrific components that are required before you can take a successful trade. And I give you my promise that at the end of this presentation, I'm going to provide you with a trading strategy and a service that's going to eliminate all of those problems. Now, this is not an education. I'm not selling you education. What I'm selling you are live trades that I take in my own real money portfolio in Thinkorswim. And if anybody challenges me, and a few people have, I am more than happy to snapshot the last 5 trades. I am in at the same price you are. I am out at the same price you are. All our targets and stops are going to be exactly the same. And I don't believe that there's any other service that you will ever encounter that can make that claim. So we're going to be all trading together. And although I want to make clear that this is an educational service, and I will be reading the disclaimer, I take every trade I throw out there at the same entry price I will put it, I will give you, and I will manage the trade with you. So we will all become colleagues. in trading this service. Now, what I'm going to be doing is going over small cap biotech. I call them blockbusters, but I'm going to show you exactly how we run the service. Hang on one sec. The questions have gone off the page here. George, I will think, really. Rory does a great job, and I know he's always working hard for you guys. So let me just go quickly to this mandatory disclaimer that all trade signals and trading opportunities that we provide for educational purposes only. Everybody understands that if you trade, it involves substantial risk, and really the key is to never risk more money than you can afford to lose. I tell that to traders all the time. Now, I just wanted to introduce you to our team here at Rightline. It is really grown. I mean, a lot of new people have come on. Mark Miller now really heads the team. And we have really added an enormous number of new people, young college graduates who have really augmented our service and really are here to back you up and really help you become a better trader. Now, just a quick snapshot of myself. I graduated from an Ivy League university. I went to the University of Pennsylvania for 8 years. I majored in applied mathematics. When I graduated, I was inducted into the Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society. I graduated summa cum laude with honors. After graduation, I applied for positions at multiple universities. I wanted to become a full-time professor and really just do teaching and research, and that's exactly what I did for a significant period of time. I was a professor at Jefferson University in Philadelphia on Walnut Street. I published 15 peer-reviewed articles in top-tier journals. As I mentioned, I was a full-time professor. I always have considered myself to be a scientist, a teacher, and an academician. That's sort of my mindset. I've been an invited speaker internationally in many countries and an invited speaker domestically in many cities. And I believe I've mentored close to 30,000 traders, either one-on-one or in small to large groups. Now, if you're looking for the holy grail of options trading, this service is not for you. The holy grail does not exist. And what I thought I would put in is just a couple of email headers that I received in the last week. One says the earnings trading strategy for repeatedly capturing high leverage profits. Breakthrough strategy produces 140% gain in one trade. 1,500 into 15,770 just a few weeks. He proves it. I calculate that's a 951% increase in profit or a return on investment in just a few weeks. That's ludicrous. Game-changing option strategy that can take your portfolio to new heights. I'm telling you, all of this is background noise. Nobody has the holy grail. There is no code, no breakthrough. If you want to become a successful options trader, you have to have a strategy that requires a lot of work, that has a very strict formula that you have to adhere to. And I'm going to show you one that is exactly like that. The strategy is based on an enormous amount of background study and work. It's mathematically optimized to provide you with up to a 91% win rate. In 2022, I had an 89% win rate. And I'm going to show you all the trades I took in 2022 and almost every trade that I took in 2023. Now, I sort of metaphorically tell you that it's a formula, but it's really sort of an investing strategy. And it does have the potential to deliver an enormous amount of success. And it's going to do it in every market environment. The great thing about the strategy that I'm going to show you is that it is going to eliminate indecision. It's going to eliminate worry on your part. You're not going to have to worry about what the Fed's going to do in terms of raising interest rates, whether or not we've got impending inflation, whether we're going to have a recession. These trades are independent of the market environment and the great universe of stocks out there, because we're going to be trading what's known as catalyst events. And I'm going to show you exactly what that means. So we're looking at small cap biotech stocks that are catalyst driven. Now, what's a catalyst? A catalyst could be anything, any piece of news that comes out on a stock that is going to take implied volatility, skyrocket it, and drive the stock a significant in a significant direction. It could drive it long, it could drive it short, but it is really going to move it a significant amount. Earnings is really your classic example of a catalyst. We know the earnings date, we know when it's going to come out. The problem is we don't always know what earnings are going to do to a stock. Now, there are ways of trading earnings that mitigate risk and optimize reward, and one of those is a time spread strategy. Excuse me, let me mute my phone here because I wind up always getting spam calls. But in general, it would be really nice to know if the direction that earnings are going to drive price. Now, the problem with earnings is this. It's not only the actual earnings that drive the future direction or drive the direction of price, it's also their forward guidance. And their forward guidance is simply an unknown metric. We just can't tell what's going to happen. Zacks does a great job of estimating your Zacks 1-tier stocks really have a good chance of either meeting or beating earnings estimates. But we don't know if their forward guidance for the next quarter is going to be soft or it's going to be really robust. And this is, since the market is a forward-looking tool, obviously, if you get an earnings beat, it's going to tend to drive the stock long, but their forward guidance really is the key. Because even an earnings miss, if the company gets up there and says, we believe we're going to have a hardcore next quarter, can drive the stock long. That's an example of a catalyst, but there's a lot of variables that go into that, and a lot of those variables are just not known. Now, so we're going to use fundamental and technical analysis and a tremendous amount of information. Obviously, that's the fundamental analysis that drives this whole service. Now, I just wanted to really briefly show you, you can trade technical analysis, and here's a nice level of support. Stock goes right through. Now, technical analysis is helpful, but if you think it's going to be that triple bottom is going to call that bottom, I'm telling you, you're going to be wrong a lot of the times. The double and triple top is not always going to call a top. And technical analysis, standing alone, has never made anybody a successful trader. And then there's the market that simply moves in chop. That is no direction. We need to be able to know that the market is in chop, and that's based on technical analysis. We need to know that in this particular case, we're not going to trade. But this strategy makes all of this stuff irrelevant because of the catalysts that we're going to provide are going to be ones that, with a 95% certainty, are going to drive the stock in the direction that we want. Now, I mentioned catalyst events on earnings. I just wanted to really remind myself to cover that and to make sure that, you can trade an earnings event and you can do it with a time spread. I discussed it with one of my colleagues last night, a way to mitigate risk and optimize reward. He does it very, very well, but earnings obviously always have that big question mark hanging out. Now, if we knew that earnings, I eliminated the stock because it's irrelevant, but if we knew that earnings was going to drive this stock short, here's a catalyst event, we could make a tremendous amount of money. The problem is we just don't know that. And this particular stock may actually have had a tremendously good quarter, but then projected very weak forward guidance. And so the stock got hammered. And if you want to really know, this stock is really Budweiser. It's Anheuser-Busch. And this decline is really based off that ad they ran in which, they featured some transgender woman on its can. Beer drinkers didn't like it, hammered the stock. That turned out to be a catalyst event. We just didn't know what was going to be. And just as well, though, could have been earnings. It could have been the announcement of a dilution in shares. It could have been multiple things. So we want to trade catalyst events with a 91% win rate. Now, last year I had an 89% win rate. I didn't quite make that 91%, but we're not going to take a trade unless myself and the colleagues I work with make an assessment that the chance that the trade is going to succeed is 95% or greater. And the core of the assessment is all based off of fundamental analysis. Now, I'm going to give you some examples. Now, here's a small cap tech stock. It's got the nice thing about trading these is they have a small float. Now, I'm going to give you a limit order to enter. Now, we're going to trade the option if there's an option chain. 95 to 99% of the time there is. Now, once in a while, that options chain will just be inert. There'll be very little open interest. Daily volume on the options would be very low. I'm not going to put us in a trade on an option that has such low interest. We're going to trade the stock, but the vast majority of these trades are going to be on options. Now, this is BioXcel, and the ticker's BTAI, so anyone can check it out. And what I found, along with 3 colleagues I work with at the University of Miami School of Medicine, is that BioXcel is an orally dissolving thin film formulation. Now, I'm giving this to you for your information. You don't really have to internalize and learn this. This is not a lecture about biophysiology, neurology, cardiology, and all the other disciplines that we look at. But the newsletter is going to contain the rationale for why we're taking the trade. So BioXcel has BXCL under investigation. It's an orally dissolving thin film formulation of dexmedetomidine. And it's a medicine that's used for the potential treatment of agitation in patients with mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. Now, agitation in Alzheimer's disease is a significant problem. And what's important to note about this medicine is it's not a cure. So when a patient develops Alzheimer's, which is obviously a very unfortunate illness to acquire, and they get agitation, they're going to need to take this medicine for the duration of their life. Now, the phase 2 trials, and I'm going to be talking to you a little bit more about phase 2 and phase 3 trials. I'm going to teach you exactly what they are. Now, we're going to hold bi-weekly educational sessions, so you're really going to come up to speed. If you want to try to trade this on your own, but I'm going to be giving you all the trades. Now, the stock was crushed when irregularities were discovered in data filed by one of the principal investigators. And that data was that he slow walked a series of serious adverse events to the FDA. They were not notified on a timely basis, so they turned down the approval of the medicine. That's what we're looking for. We're looking, it's called a PDUFA date. It's announced weeks in advance. It's when the FDA is going to give the thumbs up or thumbs down. It's like Caesar, who stands up there at the top of the Colosseum, and he gives the thumbs up or the thumbs down on that gladiator laying on the ground. He gives the thumbs up, he lives, and the thumbs down, he dies. It's all up to the FDA, but we know the date. In this case, they pulled the date because of their discovery about what happened with this principal investigator. So a serious adverse event in which the FDA was not notified on a timely basis occurred, but here's what happened. What you have to do is follow along. What I saw was that eventually the study was unblinded, and all of the adverse events took place in patients receiving placebo, not active medicine. So although the principal investigator really made an egregious mistake in slow walking the data had no impact on the outcome of the clinical study. The adverse events were somebody receiving a placebo, which is essentially water or sugar. It's not active medicine. So with that known, we ran into the stock. Now, here's what happened when that announcement came out on BioXcel. It got destroyed. All that was known was the principal investigator could have potentially been finagling data. And that would have ultimately sent the medicine back, set it back months. And the stock got hammered from 17 down to $5.88. But as soon as I learned that the principal investigator had slow walked the results, and that the results were all based on placebo-controlled patients, we rushed in with a position and bought the stock off the bottom. We made 331% off the option, 102% if you bought the stock. Now, it's always my recommendation to go with the option because you have tremendous leverage. This had a nice active options chain, nice volume, a lot of open interest at the strike price that we picked. And that's why I picked that strike price. We just rocked up 331%. Here's another position I took. This is Verrica Pharmaceuticals, small cap biotech. They have no medicines currently making them a dime. They're looking for their first flagship medication. So you can imagine that they're losing a significant amount of money. Now, they have a tremendous amount of money on hand. They have little to no debt. Those are things you all have to check in a small cap biotech. They also have a moderately small float, so you know any kind of news is going to rock that stock up. The options chain was very liquid. In fact, I think there were 5,000 people. Whoops, this thing is slipping away from me. Now, the medicine that they were looking at is called Ycanth. And it's, to break it down, it's the first medicine ever to treat molluscum contagiosum. Now, what does molluscum contagiosum cause? Well, it causes warts, but most importantly, it causes anogenital warts. Now, anogenital warts are a big problem in that they are precancerous lesions, and they cannot be excised surgically, and they are transmissible. You never hear about this being talked about as an STD, but anogenital warts are transmissible. You can give it to someone else. So it's a cause of potential malignancy, squamous cell carcinoma down the line. There is no treatment. This is the first treatment ever. Now, what I had to do, along with my colleagues, 3 professors at the University of Miami, was evaluate the phase 2 trials, and I'm going to go into what a phase 2 trial is. The results were stellar. So what we did is we ran in and we bought the stock. Actually, we bought the option. Now, we haven't even had the FDA come in with their announcement yet. But just on the fact that the PDUFA date, I believe, is July 21st. But other investors like myself and like ourselves, hopefully, saw what was happening. They ran the option up 109%. That is exactly what I cashed out and what everybody else did who got it at the same price I did. I just couldn't leave it on the table. And you can see it's retraced. I'm looking for it to come back further. And if it does, we're going to take this trade again going into the 21st of July. We're very likely we're going to get an FDA approval and we can double dip on the stock. But we already cashed our position out for 109%. This wasn't based on any technical analysis. This was based on the FDA announcement that they were going to make a decision on Ycanth, and the fact that the phase 2 study showed that the vast majority of anogenital warts resolved and they were gone. After 6 months of follow-up, they had not returned. So that was considered a curative process. Now, you know what BioXcel is going to price this medicine at. They're going to price it at some exorbitant amount. And the other important thing to note, when you have a medicine to treat a disease associated with significant mortality and morbidity, and there's no other treatment, Medicare and Medicaid will have to reimburse. And if Medicare and Medicaid have to reimburse, then so will all the insurance companies out there. So that makes this a tremendously powerful catalyst to push this stock up higher. Now, this is another one. Now, these are all 2023 trades. Now, I very rarely categorize a trade as a gimme, but this is a gimme trade. And I'm telling you, I personally backed up the truck on this one in terms of loading up on options, but Emergent Biosciences makes Narcan. Now, they don't make a lot of money off of Narcan because up until recently, it required a prescription. Now, you're not going to go to the doctor when you're obviously overdosing on an opioid analgesic. You're going to get it in the emergency room. So very little Narcan nationwide was really administered. Then the FDA announced a date to make Narcan available over the counter. Now, you know that Narcan is going to get approved OTC. You know it has been, because you now get it out of vending machines in San Francisco without cost. All you got to do is pull the lever, and I think a 6-pack of Narcan falls out, along with a couple of syringes and a crack pipe. And I'm not even kidding about the crack pipe and the syringes, but you can get a 6-pack of Narcan. Now, the syringes are needed to administer the Narcan because it can't be administered orally. It's got to be given intravenously. So when that came before the FDA, I'm telling you, there was no way on the world with the company awash in fentanyl and all these patients and all these people being poisoned by medicine in which they don't anticipate they're taking fentanyl, but it's been tainted with fentanyl. You know the FDA is going to approve this medicine. And I call it a gimme trade. Now, I am never going to recommend to you to overweight or underweight a position. That's a personal decision based on your risk tolerance and based on the size of your trade portfolio. But I'm going to tell you in the newsletter, I consider it to be a gimme. And you can take that advice for what it's worth. Remember, you're going to get all the information about Emergent Biosciences, my feeling about its chance of success. Every trade gets a COS, and that's called a chance of success. This one had a 99% chance of success. I can never go 100% because the FDA can all fall asleep. But we went up to 99%. And here's how the stock performed. Boom. It went from, I cut the right edge off. Here it is. Right around 878, we made 173% on the options trade. And I'm telling you, this was just a toss out. And these are the kind of trades we're looking for. Now, Coherus, I want to go through some of these trades because I want you to see what we're looking for and what we have gotten in 2023. Now, Udenyca is an auto-injector that increases, it's a medicine that increases the number of white blood cells that you have. That's really important if you're getting chemotherapy. There's a lot of medicines that knock down your white blood cells. If they want to reduce the inflammatory response in your body, and there's a lot of medicines out there that do. Some of the medicines for Crohn's disease, plaque psoriasis, temporarily cause a decrease in overall white blood cells, which leaves you open to infection. And if you'll notice in the TV commercials, they say, notify your doctor if you get a parasitic disease. And they say there's a small chance that you can get PML, which is polyfocal leukoencephalopathy, which is caused by a virus because the medicine knocks down your white blood cells, interferes with your immune system. Well, Coherus developed this Udenyca auto-injector. It monitors your white blood cell count. It is inserted into your arm surgically, and every time you need a little bit of medicine, it pumps right in. I didn't categorize this as a gimme because it was too complex of a system. They not only the FDA needed to approve the drug, but they needed to approve the auto-injector system as well. Now, if it got it approved, it's going to cause this medicine, this company, to go crazy because they've got two. It's really a double plus for the company. They've got an auto-injector approved that's patented, and they've got a medication approved that is patented. So Coherus got the thumbs up. We got 104% on the option. Now, these are quick trades. They aren't always quick, but this just exploded to the upside. Now, it's really hard to get 200 and 300% unless you trade a very short-term option with a gamma that is exceedingly high. So to get over 100% is a terrific trade. And remember, The risk on these trades is minimal. No, I don't, again, I cut the right edge off here, but we can see it's trading for $6.30. That option is probably going to be 50 or 60 cents. Now, I just wanted to go over just a couple more. Lantheus Holdings. This is one of my favorite positions. Now, we're still holding it. Now, it is a groundbreaking system. Everyone knows how a CAT scan has sort of evolved into an MRI. CAT scans still have their place, but in almost all cases, you're going to get an MRI instead of a CAT scan. And you can get an MRI with imaging. With intravenous dye, so we can give you better resolution and better imaging. Well, Lantheus produced sort of a 3D way of looking at the heart and the cardiovascular system. Now, it's so incredibly powerful when you look at the phase 2 and phase 3 studies, that this gives you incredible hemodynamic studies about the heart. It tells you about the ejection fraction, how well the walls of your ventricles are contracting. It looks at all the valves, your aortic valve, your pulmonary valve, your mitral valve. It basically gives you a tremendous assessment and tells you the status of your entire cardiovascular system. It looks at the aorta, it looks at the carotid arteries. It has really made, carotid angiography, where they injected dye into your carotids. If you want to see that done, if you go back to The Exorcist, when that girl Blair was rotating her head, they gave her, they actually did a really, I remember that, that stands out because that was an example of doing carotid angiography to looking at her brain. It is a very invasive and very difficult study, and it has a lot of side effects. Also, stress tests. It eliminates about half to 75% of the requirements for doing stress tests. It is a next generation imaging platform. We bought the stock at 70. We couldn't buy the option. The chain was just inert. I don't know why, but no one was interested in buying an option. Open interest was negligible. Daily volume on the option chains was just close to zero. I'm not personally taking, nor by putting you in that kind of a trade. Now, this one you had to buy, if you had, all you need to buy, if you have the money, is 100 shares. We bought it at 70. We sold 1/2 of our shares at 100. That's a 42% gain. It is now retraced. It actually retraced back to about 79. It is heading right back to 90. We're going to hold until it gets European approval. Now we're waiting for the European version of the FDA to come in with their approval. I'm telling you, it's a gimme. Now, the stock is up way too much for you to get in. I wouldn't recommend this as a buy as the stock approaches 90 bucks a share, because I see the upside on it at 120. But if you got in at 70, which is where we got in, it's a terrific buy. Unfortunately, on this one, we just couldn't take the option. And the last one I think is SC Pharma. This is close to a gimme. I didn't want to put it on the slide because I only like to put ultra gimmies on slides. But if everyone, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Lasix, but a lot of medicines to control your blood pressure are diuretics, and what they do is they make you urinate. And when you urinate, your total body volume of water is diminished. Now, one of the causes of hypertension is your body's ability to retain water. Now, there are many, many other factors. Now, Lasix is almost only given when you have congestive heart failure, when the contractility of your heart is extremely poor. Now, you should normally on each beat eject about 70 to 80% of the total volume of blood that's located in the left ventricle. And there's some people out there who have had so many heart attacks, or they have a cardiomyopathy, and the damage to their to the myocardium is so extensive, they will eject 20% of the total volume of blood in their left ventricle, and they go what's called into congestive heart failure. They're basically not pumping enough blood out of the heart. The way to fix it is by decreasing systemic vascular resistance, and you do that by basically just, to put it bluntly, peeing out 1 ton of water. And the best way to do that is via the use of Lasix. Its generic name is furosemide. Now, SC Pharmaceuticals, these are all small biotech companies we ferreted out from a tremendous number that go up before the FDA every quarter. We have to pick the cream of the crop and one with a 95% chance or greater of getting approval. Now, this was an auto injector for Lasix for patients with congestive heart failure. It measured total body volume with an implantable device in your arm, and every time total body volume increased to a certain degree, which was set by the cardiologist, you would start getting a slow intravenous infusion of Lasix or furosemide. You'd start diuresing, going to the bathroom. Your total body volume would decrease, systemic vascular resistance would decrease, the contractility of your heart would improve. And what it showed in the phase 2, phase 3 trials was that patients on this had far fewer days in the ICU, had a better quality of life, and they lived longer. So this is why we took the trade. We're only going to take it when the phase 2, phase 3 studies are absolutely stellar. Now, this saves the government an enormous amount of money. If this reduces the total number of days you spend in the ICU, and when you come into the hospital in heart failure, you're an ICU patient. You don't go to a floor bed. You don't go to a step-down bed. You go into intensive care. I mean, those beds are $10,000 a day. That's what it costs. That's what hospitals will bill you. So this saves the government an enormous amount of money. So I sort of looked upon it as a gimme. It did get approved, and bam, 184%. Look how that thing flew. We had a gap and then a run. I mean, this is a geometric rise in price. Now, that's unsustainable, but I'm going to set your targets for you. So you're going to know where to place them. And I'm going to set them based upon open interest, our ability to determine how far we believe the stock is going to run. I have to do this with my 3 colleagues at the University of Miami. I need 3 professors in medicine to help me with this. Now, I'm just going to run through really quickly. Now, listen, if you want to be a strict investor, you just want to take the trades, you can tune this out. And I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible. But I want you to be an informed investor. I just don't want you to take a trade. I want you to understand what we're doing. So a medicine is basically a company, and also I want you to see why when a medicine is ultimately approved by the FDA, why a lot of these companies have tremendous justification in charging what appears to be an exorbitant amount of money for their compound. And that's because for every 100 medicines that are discovered, maybe 2 or 3 will ever make it to the pharmacy. And the phase 2, phase 3, and then I didn't even put in phase 4 studies, cost millions and millions of dollars. And when they fail, the company simply has to eat that cost. So it's very expensive to bring a new medication into the pharmacy for use either in the hospital or the hospital and the home. So a company will discover a medicine or a compound. They can do whatever they want with it. In preclinical development, they basically have no regulatory issues. I mean, unfortunately, for some people in PETA, and if you really love your pets, and I love mine, they can do whatever they want with that compound in rats, in dogs, in mice. I mean, it's unfortunate, but in these preclinical stages, I mean, ultimately this is what saves lives. So you have to weigh what seems to be the inhumanity of it sometimes to a medicine coming into the pharmacy that's going to save thousands and thousands of lives. Now, once the company applies for an investigational new drug application, it comes under regulatory control. An early clinical phase 2 study is done on just maybe 100 patients, no matter what the medicine is. And that is simply to determine its safety and its dosing schedule. You do not look at its effectiveness. You just want to make sure it's safe. Now, if you're a really healthy person, your kidneys, your liver, your heart, all your organs are really in good shape, you can apply for these. And there's places online where you can sign up and they'll pay you $5,000 or more to become a participant in a phase 1 trial. Obviously, you have to sign about 500 million disclaimers because it could turn out that the compound is toxic. But if you're really hard up for money, you can make money in an early clinical phase 1 trial. Now, if the medicine shows that it is safe and a dosing schedule has been established, it now goes into phase 2 trials. And phase 2 trials are really one of the big catalysts we look at. And that is where we look in a relatively small cohort of patients, we look for effectiveness. And if the medicine appears to be effective in, say, 100 to 200 patients, then it will go to a phase 3 trial, and where it's looked at in 1,000 patients. Now, usually a phase 3 trial is not a placebo-controlled trial. And I'll tell you why we rarely bother with those, is that we're going to be looking for 2 types of medicines. One, that have been fast-tracked by the FDA. And I'm going to, for the people who come aboard, I'm going to give you a free trade. And that free trade, we're in already, but you have the opportunity to grab it. The stock price has sagged a little bit, and you can get in actually at a lower price than we did. But this stock is going to rock. I'm going to talk about it at the end of the presentation. Now, in that clinical phase 3, you're not going to get a placebo-controlled because it is a medication in which there is it is a medication to treat an illness that essentially has no cure. So that's the kind of medicines that get fast-track status. And when the FDA gives you fast-track status, very few medicines do. You have to have very unique properties. And one is there's got to be a tremendous need for it. Because once you get fast-track status, it means the FDA is taking this medicine under its wing, will make sure that all phases of the trial are done appropriately, everything meets statistical significance. You're working arm in arm with the FDA. Now, the phase 4 trial is when, might occur after the medicine's been approved, where you do a head-to-head with another medication, or you do a placebo-controlled study. We don't care about those. Those are not catalyst trials. We're looking at the phase 2 and the phase 3s. If they are successful, the FDA will approve the medicine. And we're only going to look at 2 types of medicines: fast-track medicines and medicines with orphan drug status. And that is medicines that are being developed to treat an illness that has no cure. We want to stack all the odds in our favor so that we got everything going for us. Now, there's a very little chance that the FDA is going to turn down a medicine that has absolutely no cure and is shown in phase 2, phase 3 trials to have clinical efficacy. Now, they just recently did, which kind of stunned me. I don't have that medicine up, but I'll discuss it with you. But every now and then they do, and that's why we don't have a 100% win rate. That's why our win rate, my win rate last year was 89%. So we're just going to go over one medicine really quickly. And this is a trade that we took this year in 2023. This is a medicine to treat Helicobacter pylori-induced gastric ulcers. Very few people know, and I know you're not here to get a lesson in biology or biochemistry, but peptic ulcers, ulcers of the stomach, 80% of them are associated with a bacteria called Helicobacter pylori. Right now, there is no antibiotic that can eradicate this effectively. Ampicillin or amoxicillin does, but it comes right back within 90 days. So there's really no cure. Now, what makes this very, very interesting is that the illness is seen disproportionately in lower socioeconomic groups. And that provides the FDA with a lot of political incentive to get a medicine approved. Believe it or not, listen, they're a governmental body, and they always put their finger up to the wind. Look what they did with the COVID vaccine. They just shot it out there with none of us knowing of all of the side effects, including myocarditis and maybe much worse longer-term side effects. They had to approve it, they did. Well, this is a medicine without quite that much political clout, but because it affected lower socioeconomic groups, I immediately came to my attention. Remember, it's orphan drug status because nothing treats this illness. And this was how the bacteria appears in a petri dish. It is these little, it's these white colonies that form on this dish. Now, what the company does, and I really want to run through this pretty quickly because this is really not the focus of what we're doing. They drop a lot of antibiotic impregnated discs on the dish. They look for the zone of clearing. The bigger the zone of clearing, the more effective is the drug. They'll pick the drug that has the biggest zone of clearing. That's where they're going to get their study. Obviously, they're going to do. Now, the problem with Helicobacter pylori is it is Helicobacter only infects humans, does not infect rats, mice, dogs. So you can't do any preclinical studies on any other type of organism. I don't know what or life form. So that's your IND based upon their preclinical data and the in vitro data they receive that shows how effective this antibiotic turned out to be an antibiotic combination. 2 antibiotics linked together. They went to the FDA, and it's not that tough to get an IND or a new drug application. I think close to 70% of all medicines that go up get this. Now, then they did a phase 1 study. Remember, I said it's not for effectiveness. It is just looked at for safety and dosing schedule. It's a pill. It's an antibiotic. You take it by mouth. And it applied for fast track status, and it received it. Some for political reasons. Others, the fact is that gastric ulcers are a big clinical problem. not only do they perforate, but they are a preclinical illness for gastric cancer. So you have to be very, very careful. You have to heal these. You cannot let a gastric ulcer go untreated. And there is no effective therapy for PUD or peptic ulcer disease. Now, 80% of these ulcers are in the stomach and 20% are in the duodenum. The phase 1 study, just looking at safety and dosing, went well. Then you go to phase 2, and here's where you look at efficacy and side effects. Now, this is where the company got its fast track status. Interim results show that there was, obviously currently there's no long-term effective therapy for peptic ulcer disease. The phase 2 trials were stellar on this medication for long-term eradication of the disease. Now, it turns out it's a combination antibiotic. And I could tell you what it is, but I'm not going to bother because it's really actually irrelevant. But it's 2 antibiotics in one. Then they got approved on their phase 2. Top line results were awesome. And the cure rate was exceedingly high with no recurrence. So then they went to phase 3. They did the study on quite a large number of patients. Remember, this is a fast track medicine. It went to the FDA and it was approved. There's the phase 3 where they did it on a large cohort. Now, it's not easy getting patients in this study because you have to do a gastric, you have to do an upper endoscopy, you have to locate an ulcer, you have to biopsy the ulcer, you have to grow the organism. So this is not a cheap phase 3 study. This was an extremely expensive study. So ultimately, though, it came out positive for this for the company. Now, obviously, there could be a placebo-controlled study. We're not going to bother with that. We don't care. We're not even going to talk about it because that's placebo-controlled advanced trials that are not catalyst events. We're not trading them. Now, the fast track designation was extremely important. We are not taking a medicine that or buying a company that does not have a medicine with a PDUFA date. In other words, a date that the FDA is going to give a thumbs up or thumbs down on, that doesn't have fast track status or orphan drug status for a life-threatening condition or to fill an unmet medical need. And life-threatening, think of AIDS, cancer, diabetes, epilepsy. The list can be as long as your arm. I mean, there's a lot of unmet medical needs out there, let me tell you. Fast track designation, FDA, I'm going to make it even briefer. The FDA takes you under their wing. And let me tell you, they hold your hand and walk you through the process. Well, that medicine got approved. I didn't bother to put up a chart. I just wanted to show you the process. So here's the key. We're going to look at fast track medicines that have orphan drug status. That I work with 3 professors at the I work with 3 professors at the University of Miami School of Medicine. These guys are 25 years plus full-time professors. They're really world-renowned in their field: immunology, neurology, cardiology. Now, I could use more, but these are the 3 that I have. And let me tell you, immunology is really the key. We give every medicine a chance of success. We base it on all of the clinical data that we have accrued. And I need their help to come up with that number. And you're not going to see a COS, I call it, on any medication that we pick of 95% of 94%. We don't believe it's got a 95% chance of success or greater. We're not going to pick it. And if you see a 99% chance, that's a back up the truck type of trade. I'm going to let you know it is, but I'm not going to mention position sizing because God forbid it should fail. I don't want you to do anything that overloads your portfolio, stresses out your equity. You base it on, again, on the amount you have to risk and the size of your trading portfolio. But these trades are low risk. So if you're ever going to overweight a position, that's the position you may want to take a few extra contracts on or add a few extra shares. Although for the most part, we're going to be trying to trade the option on every trade. Then the PDUFA decision is going to come out. And like I said, that is Caesar standing up there with the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Now, every now and then, the FDA will cancel the date, and they won't give you any reason for it. Just want you to know that PDUFA stands for Prescription Drug User Free Act. I don't even ever remember what it stands for. All I know is that's the day that the FDA is going to issue a formal thumbs up or thumbs down. That's all that matters to you or me. What it stands for is pretty irrelevant. And that's the date that we're going to buy probably 2 or 3 weeks into and let other traders accumulate positions after we do. On Verruca, we made 109% before the PDUFA date, before the FDA gave thumbs up or thumbs down. Now, that's a medicine that's very likely to get approved. Anogenital warts, and just warts in general, which it can be used for at a very small dose, kills the papillomaviruses and the other viruses that are associated with warts. Anogenital warts has a different virus. I can't remember what it is. It doesn't matter. But its efficacy rate is exceedingly high. It's associated with almost no systemic side effects because it's injected locally. That medicine is going to get approved. I want to get back into that medicine. So we're going to look at this PDUFA date. So a CRL is what we never want to see. Now, a CRL letter is the FDA telling us why the medicine that we chose was turned down. Now, sometimes the CRL letter isn't as bad as it seems. We got an unbelievable trade on Botox 2.0. Now, it's out there already. Botox, I can't remember the name of the company. It might be EBS, the ticker. I just can't remember because in the course of a week, I look at so many small biotechs with so many different ticker symbols that I've got like alphabet soup in my brain. But this company got a CRL letter for one reason, and that was when we weren't in it. I just stood down, and the reason was they could not make an inspection of the facility that was manufacturing the drug because it was in China and it was during COVID lockdown. So they loved the medicine, but they couldn't inspect the facility in which it was manufactured. So they did. The CRL letter just said that we can't approve the medicine until we can inspect it. Once they set a new PDUFA date, man, that was a gimme. I mean, and of course they approved it. We made 200+% on that medication. I mean, that's a gimme medication. Yeah, the CRL letter that the other company I just showed you got for the fact that the principal investigator was, quote, slow walking adverse reactions. Well, it turned out he was slow walking placebo-controlled patients. So it didn't matter. That drug is going to get approved. We are already in it and out at over 300%. We're going to go back in when a new PDUFA date has been set. So far, it has not. I watch it, and when it comes out, we're going to go back in. So I'm going to just show you, these are trades from 2022. Now, Novavax developed an RSV vaccine, that's respiratory syncytial virus. fast track, orphan drug status, RSV in children causes significant morbidity and mortality, 364% on the option. This is Regeneron. They made the first treatment for macular degeneration. I should have written senile macular degeneration. You know that the macula is the part of the eye where the rods and cones are the densest. That's responsible for your 20/20 vision. You don't have a macula, and you can have wet macular degeneration or dry macular degeneration. This medicine that has since been sort of eclipsed a little bit by medicines that are more specific for wet or dry. But at the time, Eylea was the only treatment for macular degeneration. We got 157% on the option. You'll notice it's not 984%. We made a great amount of money on a little bit of risk. 55% you traded the stock. You would have had a lot of money to trade that stock, though. Clovis Oncology made Rubraca. You may have seen the commercial on TV. It is part of a multi-tiered way of treating ovarian cancer. It doesn't cure, but it is a tremendous amelioration in disseminated ovarian cancer. You get a better quality of life, longer life, 302%. Here's United Therapeutics. They made Unituxin is still being used, and I'll tell you who got Unituxin, John McCain. If you remember John McCain, whether you like or dislike his politics, it was obviously tragic, but he got a glioblastoma, which is normally seen in children. And when you see those commercials for St. Jude Children's Hospital, and the children are bald, and I mean, you sort of want to cry. A lot of them have glioblastomas. Now, they're not curable, but Unituxin has really made them treatable. Now, the older you get, when you get the tumor, the more aggressive it is. So as a child, you can live a significant period of time with it. But as an adult, it really is very intractable and very aggressive. And after his diagnosis, I think he lived less than a year. It's unfortunate. So I'm just going to give you a couple of more examples. Amylyx. I'm going to go. Now, I wanted to give these because this is how the newsletter reads. I don't want to show you the kind of information you're going to get. And I'm just going to, go through it very quickly. But they developed an orphan drug, fast-track medicine to treat amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease. I went to a lot of trouble to write out. It's a proprietary combination of taururos, deoxycholic acid, and sodium phenylbutyrate, dose and synergistic ratio to block mitochondrial stress. There was the approval, bam, gap, 147%. On Amicus is Fold. Now this medicine I really liked. This is to treat Pompe's disease. This is an innate, inherited problem with glucose metabolism. You're born with this. If you Google Pompe's disease, you're going to see horrible pictures of kids in there who are 7, 8, 9 years old. It's deforming. It's debilitating. Essentially, what you can do when you eat any kind of food, ultimately, it doesn't matter what you eat. It's broken down into glucose, and glucose then forms polymers called glycogen, and glycogen is then deposited in the body in these little storage vacuoles, and they go into muscle. And if you have Pompe's disease, you can store it, but you can't then break it down. So it just builds up in these packets. It's horribly debilitating. You're usually dead in your early teens. They developed the first medicament. I went to the, and again, I said this is the second company's BLA for AT-GAA. I wanted everyone to understand, at least on a fundamental level, what they were getting, what their investment was in. Just don't want to put up a trade and say, hey, I love this trade. You go ahead and take it. Want you to understand a little bit about the underlying biochemistry, physiology, biophysiology of what you're getting or what you're buying into. There was the trade. I didn't put in the percentage here. I don't know how I missed it, but you can see this was a geometric rise in price. We did extremely well on this stock. So here's our 2022 performance. There are 18 trades and 2 losers. And we just rocked in 2022. Now, in 2023, I showed you a lot of the trades. We're running at about a 90% win rate. Now, I believe that no other trade has greater predictive power than the ones that I'm going to provide you with this service, because we put an enormous amount of work into the trades, and we stand down on an enormous number of trades that go on to become losers. We don't want to assume any risk. So we have about a 91% win rate. And I really believe that one winner should take care of a year of this service. You trade 2, 3, or 4 options, and remember, they're cheap options, because for the most part, these are stocks that are between 50 cents and a buck, or 50 cents and maybe $2 or $3. That options position is not going to cost you a lot of money. How much you risk, obviously, is totally up to you. And that is not my place to tell you anything about it. Remember, it is an educational service, but that is your decision. But that's our win rate. Now, the reason it's not higher is a little bit complex, but every now and then we get an FDA approval and the stock doesn't fire up. And the reason is that investors don't perceive that the stock is going to make that much money. So we have become very careful with that. We want to make sure that an FDA approval is going to increase the bottom line to the company significantly, because we've had a couple now in the past 2 years of FDA approvals that just rolled over and died. And the reason was the perception of investors that the FDA approval just wasn't going to be enough to catalyze a major increase in bottom line revenue. Now we're much more careful, and that's where I come in. I mean, I look at the float, I look at what I think is going to be the potential revenue for the stock. And so if I don't think it's going to really catalyze a lot of loot into the company's coffers, then we're going to stand down on it, irrespective of its chance of success. Now, I have a lot of testimonials. I get a lot of emails. This is Sophia, the first 2 months. I remember how accurate the alerts are. After 45% increase to my account within the first 2 months, I'm a member for life. I mean, the service really does exceptionally well. And we just cashed out 2 mega winners on Veruca and on BioXcel. I gave Mark's biotech service a try. I have to say that he surely knows his stuff when it comes to biotech companies. His first 3 trades were all over 100% gains. Thank you, Mark. You are truly a gifted trader. But you know, in this particular case, it's not so much that I know how to format the options trade, because I'm what's called a naked trader. We're going to be buying calls pretty much all the time. I know the best call, the best strike price to take. I have to rely on 3 really geniuses in their field to really help me, or I could not do this service. And I'm so thankful I connected with Mark and the whole Right Line Trading team in 2 short months. 205%, which is definitely possible with this blockbuster alert. So I told all of my friends and relatives it's well worth the annual cost. So I'm going to give you the offer. It's $39.99 per year. Now, for the first 20, you're going to get 3 bonuses. Now, that offer expires tonight, but I get a lot of blowback that that price is too high, even though I'm telling you, you're going to make that money back really quick. So what I did was I wanted to cut the price in order to give you a low barrier to entry. And what I'm going to offer for you today, if you buy it on a yearly basis, it's $997. On a quarterly, it's $297. And for the first 10 who come aboard, you're going to get this monograph. There are 3 monographs. I spent a lot of time writing these. They're unique and extremely powerful. I'm in all 3 of these stocks. They're very much Apple related. I'm not going to go into any more detail, but these are going to pay a lot of money to people who are in them. And just remember, I just want you to remember one thing about, if you don't come aboard, about this is one takeaway message. And that is, everybody always says to you, you know what? I invested in Amazon when it was $1.75. Well, go back and look. It from 1996, I think, when Amazon IPO'd, till the time when it traded above $5 a share. It was 11 years. So if you actually can say that you raked in a bundle by buying into Amazon early, you had to hold on to the trade for a decade. And I just want to briefly mention the dot-com bubble. Now, a lot of traders, I traded the dot-com bubble, and there may be traders in this who are listening to me who traded it. If you did, you couldn't make a wrong trade. Everything that you traded, I mean, I couldn't trade wrong. And I'll tell you the honest to God truth, I made $480,000 on one trade overnight while I was skiing in Colorado. I mean, I didn't even have to know what I was doing, but I bought Commerce One, or CMRC. I don't remember the price I bought it at. I think I bought it at $80 a share. Actually, I think I bought it at 300 something a share. It split 4-to-1 and went up $100. It closed up 80. I had 6,000 shares, and I made $480,000. And if you think I knew what I was doing, if you think that was a savvy investment, you are wrong. So a lot of us rode the dot-com bubble up, and then we rode it right back down. But look at what Warren Buffett did. He didn't trade one dot-com stock. He sat with his railroads and his utilities, and the guy's worth about $60 trillion. What he believes is really what I believe now. If you latch on to a great stock with a great thesis, you have to have patience. And I'm going to give you 3 stocks in those PDFs. I'm attached to all of them, and there are a lot more out there that I'm attached to. You just have to wait. If you get in early, they're going to sit. So $997 per year to here. And now here is your bonus. Now the bonus is, if you come aboard today, this trade will go out to you. I'm telling you, this is a terrific trade. I knocked off the medicine and I knocked off the company because I don't want to throw that out. This is a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company. It's partnered with Biogen. Now it's a medicine. They are sending the PDUFA data is already set. It is coming up at the end of July. So this is not a long-term hold, and we are in it already. But like I said, it sagged a little bit. So the option has dropped in price about 5%. So you can get into the trade actually a couple of cents cheaper. Now it's looking to get an IND for the treatment of major depressive disorder and postpartum depression. There is no specific medicine for PPD. And it's a next generation neuroactive steroid that acts as a positive allosteric modulator that's been optimized with the selectivity to synaptic and extrasynaptic GABA alpha receptors. That means that it bypasses those serotonin reuptake inhibitor disasters. It's not Celexa. It is not Prozac. It is not Paxil. All those SSRIs. I think they're pretty bad. I think they've dented a lot of young people. And listen, I'm not a physician, but I don't like them. This is really a next gen medicine. It's got fast track status. It's based on the data from its Landscape and NEST programs, and for MDD, and its NEST program looking at 2 cohorts of adult women with postpartum depression. Here's the FDA date. It's August 5, 2023. The chance of success on this medicine is 97%, set by myself, along with my 3 really smart cohorts. And one of them is a neurobiologist. And this guy is a neurologist who does all his work on neurobiology. He thinks this medicine is going to get approved. So the NDA, and here's the nice kicker about it, that the NDA is just for MDD and PTD, but the company is also in phase 2 trials evaluating the medicine for treatment-resistant depression, anxiety disorder, bipolar depression. So although we're going to trade the option for this PDUFA date, I believe it's going to hit and rocket this stock. We're going to wait for it to come back, and then we're going to go back in anticipation of further mileage off these additional studies looking at bipolar depression, generalized anxiety. Now, we bought it off a bottom. It had a really tough June because it missed its earnings. Now it's losing money, and it lost more money than it should have, which is fine with me. I love peeling these stocks off the bottom. The PDUFA date was just announced, so it's just going to sink into investors, and they're going to start putting their money. The COS is 96%. I think I might have said it was 97, but the chance of success is 96. That's where we set it. So that's a very, very high chance of success on this medication. It is really worth the investment. You come aboard today, you're going to get it. If this is approved, it's going to pay for your subscription. Whether you buy the quarterly or the yearly, you will get, you will rack it on both. And you don't have to buy many positions on this in order to take the trade. Now, this is not a cheap option because there's a lot of volatility associated with it. I think it's about $200 some odd per option. So here's the offer. Let me answer any questions. Hang on one second. Okay. Just got to take off my glasses. Hang on here. Hold on. Let me just go to the top. So Joan says yes. Okay. Yeah, Joan. That's basically we're buying calls. What I did was I took one rollover on a stock, and I listen. I want to be completely transparent with you, and the stock never really rolled over. So in the 3 years the service has been active, I tried shorting one stock on a geometric move up that I thought was absolutely going to be associated with a roll back to the downside. It didn't roll to the downside, and so I am out of the short business. All we're doing is going to be buying calls, and I'm going to be buying calls at the strike price and expiration date where open interest is massive, and that's where all the big money traders are sitting. Okay. Now, alerts per week, Joan, it's a great question. Sometimes you're going to get 2 alerts per week. Sometimes you're going to get none. And the reason that that's the case is simply because it's up to the FDA. Sometimes they act like they're in a coma. And summertime happens to be a slow time. Remember, they're still a government agency, and nobody oversees them, and they can take 8-hour lunches. So there's nothing we can do when they move at a snail's pace. In the fall, winter, and spring, when they rock, we can get a lot of trades. But remember again, Joan, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. I sort through a ton of trades that I just discard. So they're going to look at a lot of medicines every quarter. Every quarter, they release a calendar. It's called the PDUFA calendar. And if you want, I'll forward you the calendar every quarter. And you can see all the medicines that are coming up for approval. But it's really it's a mess because it's so many medicines and the vast majority of them will never see the light of day. So that's where all the work comes in. So the number of trades you get is really going to be dependent on the number of medicines that cross that in totality, all of us believe are going to have a COS or chance of success of 95% or greater. Length of time per trade, Joan, normally is about a month. We're going to buy into the trade about 4 weeks before the PDUFA date. Now, I have 4 stocks that I'm holding long-term. Lantheus, I already told you, we bought in at 70, took half off at 100. We're going to hold that until it gets to 120. I mean, I don't care how long we have to wait. The European approval is being slow walked. I don't know why. You have to have a little bit of patience. Cidara, CDTX is a medicine that we're holding, and actually it's a great purchase if you want to get in on it. It's got multiple PDUFA dates in 2024. We bought it at $1. It went to $5. We took half of our position and went right back to $1. It's sitting there. It's going to go back to $5. We just double dipped on it. So we're holding that. But when we trade an option, we're in and out. We've got one more. We've got Eagle Pharmaceuticals. That just didn't have an optionable position. We're waiting for the PDUFA date. I just don't remember when it is, but we're holding the stock. In general, though, our hold time is 4 weeks to less. In 2022, we had 18 trades, 16 winners. So listen, I could have had 30 trades, 35 trades, Joan, but I only want to give you winners. And that's really what it's all about. It's really not about quantity. It's really all about quality. I mean, if you get 18 trade suggestions and you get 16 winners and 2 losers, and you asset allocate equally across all those positions, it's impossible for you not to have a stellar ROI. And that's really the name of the game. I could throw out more that have a COS of 85%. I'm the one that set it at 95%. These doctors and myself, we come up with medicines all the time, 85%, 86%, 89%. I don't want to throw those out to you. I just don't think it's worth it for you to ponder and worry about medicines with that kind of chance of success. And I'll tell you really quickly about one medicine. I'll take 2 seconds that failed in 2023. It's one of my losers. It's a medicine, it's methotrexate. It was for the intravitreal, right through the eye, for the treatment of a very unique kind of lymphoma that currently has no therapy, and it leads to quick death. Now, methotrexate has been around for 30 years. The FDA, I was stunned, but the FDA denied its approval. I mean, we had it at 98% chance, and the reason was insufficient clinical data. And believe it or not, there's a problem manufacturing methotrexate. And I knew that, but I just figured when you're looking at a disease that has no cure, no palliative, you can't give radiation therapy when the disease is invading someone's eye. So I just felt that this was a very high chance. FDA didn't agree with me. Now we're back in the stock after it's fallen because it's going to reapply with additional clinical data. See, they didn't say the medicine didn't work. They just said it didn't have enough clinical data. It's going to take a while, but we're going to have patience. That's all. But that was a stunner. Hey, can you display? Okay. You know what? I don't have it right here. I will send it to you, Roberts. Okay, I can't read your first name. I don't want to mispronounce it, but I will. We're running right around 90% win rate. I'm telling you, in 2023, right there. The average hold time, like I said, is about a month for the options, and the market is going to give me the hold time because it's going to tell it. Listen, we're not holding through the PDUFA date. When the PDUFA date is announced, I'm going to start looking about a month out from the announcement. Even if the stock rises a little bit, all the big money investors don't start sniffing around until it's about 4 weeks out. And you're going to see we're going to get in ahead of the vast majority of investors. They'll start buying the stock and they'll start buying the options after we do. Hey, George, what is the cost for those of us who already have subscriptions to other alert services? Okay, George, you know what? You just call the company or Rory, and he will let you know. Hey, I'm just going to call you Patel. Again, the trades per month are totally based on the FDA. I mean, I wish I could throw out to you 7, 8, 9 trades a month. And I'll just end with this. The amount of work that I have to do per month is the same every month. I have to assess every single medicine. These 3 professors are not going to sit down and look at 35 medications. I have to kind of sort through them myself. Now, what I do is I have a subscription. I became a member of the University of Miami School of Medicine library, and I have a subscription to Nexus Lexis at the library. So I can do a Nexus Lexis world search of the literature for any medication I want. The front desk of the library, they all know me. So when they hear that it's Mark calling, they know who it is. And they do I only look for, obviously, articles in English because I can't interpret those. A lot of them, some of them are in German. You know, Scandinavia comes out with a lot of good studies. And I like Novartis a lot. We've traded Novartis. But in any event, I do a world search literature on a lot of medicines. And a lot of them just turn out to be stinkerinos. They're going up for approval, but their phase 2, phase 3 data is shaky. And I just have to discard them. I have to sort through an enormous number of medicines. I don't want to send you a trade that, remember, I'm taking the trade. So I am risking my own money. Now, again, it's for educational purposes only, but I just want you to know that if I send a trade out there, I'm in the trade. And I'm going to take I send out a limit order in terms of the trade evolution. I'm going to send you targets. I'm going to set a stop. Everything is going to be done via the newsletter, the entire trade management, and I am going to trade via that, what I send out. I am in with you on this. This is why I'm not sending out trades that are marginal, because I'm not risking my own personal money on a trade that I think has a chance to blow up. And the FDA is finicky when it comes to some of these medicines. I was stunned at their methotrexate decision. I thought it was a bad decision, but what can I do? So that's the service. I appreciate all the questions. This is, for me, is a labor of love. I do it because I really enjoy it. And this is what I sit around and do at night. I mean, other people watch TV and I'm looking at small cap biotech stocks. Are your wins? No, we set a stop well short of a 100% loss, Joan. The wins can be, listen, I showed you wins. One of them was 57%. A lot of them are triple digit wins. I mean, when we get an FDA approval, because of the small float, the volatility is going to send that thing up flying. I mean, 100% we're going to be looking down at. We can get 150, 160, sometimes 200 or 300% on the trade. But if for some reason the position just drifts, I'm going to take us out of the trade. We can always go back in if I like the medicine, but I'm not going to risk any more money than 50%. So we're going to exit the trade. So we've got a stop in place. We've got our downside risk limited, and our upside is many, many times out of our downside, and our win rate is conservatively 85 winners to every 15 losers. And that is, I don't think that can be matched. So listen, everybody, have a really, really wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. You come aboard today, I'm going to give you this trade. You're going to get it. I believe Rory is going to send it to you. Everything will be filled out. The entry price, the limit order will be put in. Once you're filled, you're going to get the targets, the stop, exactly as they're configured for all the traders in the service. The trade is then on autopilot. Now, I hope you belong to an option service that allows you to do an OCO order, which is one order cancels the other, so that you can put in a target and a stop at the same time. If you can't, I recommend you put in the stop first. And then if the stock flies, you're going to know it, and you're just going to grab that first target. But if you can do an OCO, Thinkorswim allows you to. You can put in the target and the stop at the same time. Targets hit, stops canceled, stops hit, targets canceled. So everyone really have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I wish you all the best. I thank you for your time, and be well. And again, if you have any additional questions, just feel free to either email me at info@rightlinetrading.com or call the number. Where did I put it here? These are the bonuses you're going to get if you're one of the first 10. The Tiny Company by America's $4 trillion medical revolution, Apple's red line operation, of a secret chip maker poised to dominate healthcare. And there's really going to be a revolution in healthcare. I mean, major revolution. And we're going to have our bi-weekly small tech update sessions. Twice a month, we're going to meet together, and we're going to go over every open position in the portfolio. We're going to look at potential new trades. We're going to discuss them together. Like I told you, I don't want to make this a black box system. If you want to learn more about how to do this, you attend. If you don't care and you just want to take the trades as they're presented to you, you don't have to. But if you want to understand why I'm holding, why we're going back into a trade, I'm going to give you all my rationale. Chat is open. Everybody will see everybody else's questions. It's going to be an intimate get-together of simply our subscribers. And it's a very, very informative session. So again, everyone have a great weekend, and I really, really thank you for your time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.